Mike, Rosie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. And over to you.
Right. Rosie and I will be talking through the slides I've done. I'm just trying to share them so that we can all see them. I'm Mike Thomas. I had a spinal injury, a skiing accident about 35 years ago or something. So I've been a wheelchair user since then. And about 20 years ago, I discovered hand cycling. It was just the best thing since sliced bread. It got me back out in the wilds. I used to be a caver, a cave diver, climber. So getting back out in the country was actually quite important to me. So hand cycling was the best thing since sliced bread. And I'll let Rosie introduce herself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rosie. I'm not a hand cyclist. I'm a two-wheel cyclist. I now use an e-bike though as well. So I know Neil very well, who is the founder of Adaptive Riders Collective, and we have done many adventures together. I also have classic and hypermobility, Ehlers Danlos, and ADHD. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. So yeah, I'm basically I was Neil's wing lady getting it set up, and for most of his adventures and finding out what hand cycles can do before we actually went ahead and started the charity and got people out and about off road.
You'll hear Neil mentioned quite a lot. Neil's the founder and CEO of the Adaptive Riders Collective. He's been the driving force. He's had the vision. He's basically got us all involved, and he's the main reason all of this has happened. So you'll hear him mentioned a lot. It's all down to him. It's all his fault. The picture, I'll try and describe the pictures. The picture that you can see here is of a week that we had in Aviemore. We had 18 adaptive riders for a residential week in Aviemore, which is phenomenal. So if we go on to the next slide, he says, going on to the next slide. So what we'll do is we'll go through the history of ARC from its prehistory right through to the last couple of years, some of the funding things that we've done with it, some of the media. So we'll talk about the film, three-wheel drive that's there, some of the challenges that we've encountered and worked through, successes, and then go on to the future. And at the end, you can do questions, and I've also put some links in if you need to follow things up later on. So if we go on to the ARC prehistory, this is Neil on the left. I met Neil many moons ago when he was just starting hand cycling, and he got hand cycling on the road, like Ken and myself, who were also here. Going on the road is one of the potential barriers for adaptive cycling. Lots of people aren't confident on the road. You tend to be lower down. People aren't used to seeing you. So you've got to be very confident to get out there. And if you're not a confident cyclist, that's a major barrier. The other barriers that we all realized and was part of the reason for setting up ARC is that the opportunity to go adaptive cycling isn't there for everyone. These things are very expensive. It's difficult to store them. It's difficult to use them. You don't know where the barriers are. Lots of cycle paths and things have motorbike barriers that only stop us, because illegal motorcycle use, they tend to just tear around and go on other areas. And they're difficult to transport because they're big, which means you have to have an estate car or a van or something like that. And finally, there's issues with personal requirements. If you need to go toileting or whatever else, you've got to be able to deal with that from the adaptive cycle. So all of this sort of got melded into it. Neil then went down south and worked with a group called Experience Community, who get people out and about in the countryside. They've got adaptive cycling as well as they do guided walks using things like mountain trikes. And on the back of that, Neil came back up to the north and realized that there was an opportunity for him to set up the Adaptive Riders Collective and get people out and about. So I think I'll go on to the next one, which is Arc appeared. So the vision was that we would have inclusive off-road adaptive cycling for all. So we would try and get as many people out there, have no barriers to entry. So adaptive cycles. The off-road part was to take away the concern that people had about dealing with cars and traffic and all of those issues. So there's less perceived danger. So we started off as a community interest company, a CIC, back in 2022, and we were borrowing hand cycles because Neil, myself, and several other people who use hand cycles. We picked those up from Castle Semple, which is an outdoor centre run by the council in near Glasgow, and the senior instructor there was extremely helpful in getting everything set up, and has been for many years. And we started doing lead rides from Aberfoyle and other places. Rosie led a ride from Pitlochry, I think, it was really nice. It was all uphill on the way out. Of course, it meant it was downhill on the way back. But it gave people a real view, an experience. I mean, getting out to some of these lochs that there's no one else about. And okay, there's a few midges at times, but it's an experience that lots of people who've had a disability, born with a disability, they've never experienced these things before, and to see some of the reactions from those people it was phenomenal. Neil also pushed for getting us involved with mainstream events. So one of the first was a gravel foil, which is an organized event for several hundred cyclists to go and ride around particular time circuits around the Trossachs. And Neil worked with the organizers there to say, let's have an adaptive cycle category, so that we got people in there were certain sections that weren't going to be passable, things like gates that were too narrow. It was a bridge over a stream that was too narrow. And so, we had a separate circuit. We shared parts of it and then came back together. So it was a really good inclusive event. And it's really useful for the mainstream to actually see adaptive riders, because most of them have no appreciation of that at all. So it was really good to get out there and be seen, because it also starts generating more interest, because you find people who I know somebody who's had a stroke or has had an amputation or something like that. They find out and they can get involved. And the pictures are from not one of Neil's greatest ideas, I would suggest. He organized a 24-hour fundraising ride. Excuse me, I also have a recovering from a cold. I'm just going to cough. Sorry, excuse me. So this 24-hour fundraising ride was chosen on the shortest day of the year, which meant that it was something like 18 hours of darkness. And there's a wonderful photograph taken down the bottom there. That's of a mixed group. You can see some of us up the top there. We rode through 24 hours of snow and ice, and it was cold. I mean, it was a wonderful event, but it would have been nicer to have done it on the longest day instead.
I think it rained 23 of the 24 hours.
I think you're right, yes. We did have to change the route because it was icy in places, so we couldn't do the original route. It's a wonderful idea, but so that was the original one. So as ARC started growing, we moved to the Wheel Cycling Centre at Callender. It's basically it's a shop that sells bikes and e-bikes, but it also rents them out, and they've been extremely helpful in both providing us space and now office space and everything. So ARC is now based at the Wheel Cycling Centre. It's just outside Callender. It's on it. I'm not sure if it's actually in the Trossachs National Park, but it's it means you're right in the middle of wonderful tracks and trails. And we now have our own fleet of hand cycles. With Neil working as part of the organisation, he managed to get Jane, who's access to work helper for Neil, and Jane is an absolute stalwart. She came on some of the rides as a volunteer, and we managed to cajole her into coming to work for ARC. So those are the two employees that we have, Neil and Jane. And Jane basically is leading a lot of the rides. She's helping out with the rides. And yeah, she's doing a lot of the sessions. So ARC was then running 2 lead rides a week. So on Tuesday, we do a development ride. So it's for new riders, people who've not done very much. And some of that's been tailored for people who, don't think they can do anything at all. We'd get them out and, virtually one-to-one sessions at times. And then Wednesday, we've done longer rides, which are for more advanced, experienced riders, going further. And the picture is of Acre Farm, where they do goat ice cream. So it's been really nice to go along the trails alongside Loch Lubnaig, and then end up here for an ice cream. It works really well in the summer. And the only problem tends to be there is the goats try and eat your ice cream or eat anything you've got, including your clothes, cycle, everything. But you know what goats are like. So we've moved on to ARC in 2025. We've moved from a CIC to become an SCIO, which is a Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organisation, which is basically a Scottish charity. So the charity status is giving us more opportunities for funding. Quite a lot of organisations will look more kindly on you if you have charitable status. We've also worked with Scottish Cycling and developing mountain biking in Scotland to get ride leaders trained. So we've had 2 groups of 6. So we've got some who are actually disabled ride leaders and a mixture of those and volunteers. So we've got 12 so far. And we've also had a set of outdoor first aid training, which I'm embarrassed to say, 6 weeks after having gone through mine, I didn't diagnose my own broken leg. But yeah, that's my fault. So we've done a fantastic job, I think, in getting more people out and about. The come and try sessions have been very successful. The picture you have here is of a group of 6 adaptive riders at the Kelpies in Falkirk. And we've got 3 people who've never ridden before. We've got volunteers from over. One of the volunteers who came down for this came down from Inverness. So we've got some very dedicated, good volunteers. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the first residential event we had in Aviemore, and we had 18 adaptive riders on that, which I think is a record for any event like this. I didn't go because I didn't want to take a space. I thought it was more important. I've ridden around there before. I thought it was more important for other people to go. So I feel a bit left out. I'd quite like to have done it, but I think it's better that other people have a go. Going on to funding, we've got funding basically is coming from charitable donations. We've got individuals and funds that we've managed to tap into. Neil and Jane are incredibly good at finding organisations that will donate to ARC and particular niches. We've had grants from organisations. SIS is Spinal Injury Scotland. They've been very supportive because obviously people who have spinal injuries quite often can't use the lower limbs particularly well or at all. So hand cycling is particularly useful. And Scottish Cycling have been very supportive with the ride leader work. ARC's also had some consultancy work. Jane, Rosie and Neil went and did access audit for the coast-to-coast cycle route from Port Patrick to Eyemouth, and they've done some forestry audits. I don't know if you'd like to say anything about the coast-to-coast audit, Rosie, is that?
Yeah, it was it felt all quite last minute when they approached us, and we only had until the end of the funding year. So unfortunately, we had to do it in February. Wasn't the best weather, but it was amazing to work with the organisation. So yeah, Neil and I set off and did it over. We were doing it over 6 days. Unfortunately, Neil fell ill, and I continued myself. But having ridden with Neil plenty and having organised rides out for him and everything and things like that, we felt that it was absolutely fine for me to go ahead, although we would rather always have it fully audited by an adaptive cycle. We felt that it was actually still fine for me to go ahead with my knowledge and understanding. It is actually a great route, and there is potential future work in that as well for us.
Thanks, Rosie. I was actually meant to ride that later on in the year, but having broken my leg 2 weeks before, I managed to blow it. The picture is not photoshopped. It's of one of our adaptive riders on an ice trike who was trying to get across a rather bumpy little stream in the Pentlands and took off. So in the media, we've got several things. I'll go from the bottom up. We did some filming with the RSPB at Loch Leven to highlight the accessibility of their trails and hides. Neil, the left-hand picture is Neil at Kielder Forest with Matt, I can't remember his second name, Matt, the presenter. We should have had him riding, but he'd done something to his back the week before, so unfortunately only Neil rode on that one. And the right-hand picture is three-wheel drive, and I'll pass over to Rosie, who was actually hooked into that.
Yeah, so Neil and I, we were decided to go to the Big Bike Film Night in Stirling, and we went there and we loved the film so much. We came back out and we told the organizer, we're going to get a film in the Big Bike Film Night, and he just kind of laughed at us. But then we were absolutely determined. So it wasn't going to be part of ARC initially because we thought it might be a flop. So we did all our own fundraising for it. And yeah, we found a route, decided to go to a bothy with a group of adaptive cyclists. And yeah, so we made this film, and it has actually been a complete hit, and we've been really, really proud of that. And so we do use it for ARC as a bit of a promotion of what we do. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about that at the end. But yeah, we've been in it's 2 years and we've done a full circle, and we are actually back in the Big Bike Film Night this year. We were featured, so that's gone internationally. So we were really, really proud of that. But we didn't make it to the Stirling showing because Storm Amy stopped us, which was a real shame. That was supposed to be our 2 years full circle. But yeah, we're really, really proud of that. And it's actually, I think it's touched a lot of people's hearts, that film, because we focused entirely on the adaptive cycles and the challenges of just going out for a bothy trip that might be seen as something quite simple for people who are able-bodied, but obviously it took a lot more logistics and planning. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about that at the end.
And there's a link to that on YouTube. I've got on the slides at the end, so people can go away and watch that. 40 minutes of your life that's well spent. Now on to challenges. The major challenges I think we have really are recruiting new riders. It's getting the message out there. It's very difficult to get hold of people. Now Neil and the guys are really a whiz on social media, so unfortunately I don't do Instagram because nearly everything's on Instagram. It's a really good way of seeing everything. But oh, sorry, well, I don't want you to see that one yet. Going through local cycling clubs and disability organisations, we've had the MS Society and MS groups locally. We haven't tried to tie into things like LESMA, but getting hold of groups like this, the local Parkinson's group comes to one of the places I also volunteer at, but it's there's so much scope for people. People don't realize they can do it. People don't realize that this is an option, and it's getting that message out there's a real challenge. Equipment, we've got some hand cycles. We're just getting hold of a couple of ice trikes. You saw the guy jumping in the air on his ice trike. So it's for people who've, may have balance issues. So they can use the legs, they can power the cycle with the legs, but these recumbent ice trikes are really good. So we've got a couple of electric assist ones of those rolling up. But there's lots of equipment required for different sorts of disabilities, and they tend to be very tailored. They're also incredibly expensive. And then one of the other issues is transferring people who are not getting out of your wheelchair into a hand cycle for the first time is daunting. And I mean, we've got some equipment. We've got a bath lift, bath lift chair, so people can at least level transfer and then be lowered down to the height of the hand cycle seat and then level transfer across. But it puts people off. So we do really need to help as much of that with equipment. But successes, I mean, I think ARC has been incredibly successful. We've built a really good, diverse community from nothing. People are out and about. It's amazing seeing the number of people who come back again and again and again. We've got loads of regular riders and volunteers, as I say, from all over the country. Our youngest rider, I think, is 11, and our oldest is had his 80th birthday on a ride. So we have a pretty good spread. Demographics, we tend to, I think there's only slightly more people who would identify as male compared to female. So that, I think, is actually better than most cycling clubs where there tend to be an awful lot more men. We do have an awful lot of women involved, both as volunteers and riders. And we've really raised the awareness in the mainstream cycling community. I was out for a ride today and bumped into somebody who said, I saw someone like you at coming off the Curragh. And I thought, I bet you that was Neil. And we've generated countless smiling, if muddy, faces. This lady on the left here, this was gravel foil 10. She did, I don't think she quite managed 10 hours of cycling. It was a 10-hour event, but she's tetraplegic. So under her right arm, you'll see that's her brakes. So she can't operate normal brakes. So that's an elbow brake, and she has elbow brakes and gears on her cycle. So she's fantastic, my hero. She went and did 50 miles on Monday, and it nearly killed her. But I'm very, very impressed with what she can achieve. So our future plans are ARC are getting an adapted van. So when I say adapted, it means it's adapted for Neil, other people with hand controls. So we can now do come and try sessions further afield. And we've also got a personal hygiene space that can be attached to that, which means we can go and people don't need to worry about accessible toilets and things for rides that we start elsewhere. I've mentioned the ice recumbent trikes coming. We need to get more riders and keep growing. Those are the really things we want to do. Now, I've got a very busy slide which basically says some participants saying it's absolutely wonderful. It's got them up. Our 80-year-old could hardly walk 20 or can hardly walk 20 yards, but he can cycle 20 miles. And the volunteer who just thinks it's wonderful getting out and about and meeting people. So that's really all we're going to say. I'll go on to questions and leave you with a picture of Neil with a very muddy face. The slide after this is just is links to find further information on ARC, on Rosie. Rosie runs her own business, leading as well. So if you want to go out riding with Rosie, there's a link to that. And then also to Experience Community that Neil worked with down south, and Wheels for Wellbeing, who a London-based campaign for inclusive cycling, who they've got some really good stuff on their website for inclusive cycling.
Thank you so much. I feel like I could have listened to you for a lot longer, but we are going to have to.
No, it just feels like a lot longer.
Wrap it up. I really love the smiling but muddy faces, although maybe it's smiling and muddy faces is maybe the better way of putting it.